Welcome to Inspiration Health Radio, sponsored by Millennium Physician Group. I'm Michelle McCormick. Lately, the feeling of being overworked, busy, and anxious applies for most people. We're constantly taking care of others, whether it's our kids, our loved ones, our jobs, before we even take care of ourselves. Today, we're going to talk about self-care and how our mental health is important, especially if we want to continue to take care of those around us. But first, Millennium Physician Group is a leading comprehensive independent physician group in Florida with more than 700 healthcare providers at 150 locations in 19 Florida counties, serving nearly 500,000 patients. Millennium Physician Group, your connection to a healthier life. Learn more at millenniumphysician.com. Connection, innovation, inspiration, health. Each week, we're talking about the healthcare issues that are important to you by inviting providers and experts to inspire you to take control of your healthcare decisions. Join us right now for a healthcare journey as we work together to achieve the best health outcome for you. Perhaps you've heard the term, self-care isn't selfish. When searching the saying, I found many different entities using it to describe basically not feeling bad about taking care of yourself while helping you to recharge. It's vital for your well-being and for those around you. Joining us now is Brandy Epperson. She's a Millennium Physician Group nurse practitioner from our Orange Park clinic on Kingsley Avenue. Brandy, welcome to the show. You've been with us before, but give us a little bit of background about yourself and talk a little bit about your office in Orange Park.
Hi, good afternoon, Michelle. Thanks for having me. Like you said, my name is Brandy Epperson. I am a family nurse practitioner. I work in internal medicine with Dr. Yase on the Kingsley Avenue, Orange Park location. And I've been here since September, and it's fantastic. I am so happy here. I transferred from the military. I was an active duty Navy nurse practitioner for many years, and I just retired last July. So this is my life after retirement, and I'm really enjoying myself.
Well, good. We are so thrilled to have you, and thank you for your many years of service in the Navy, and we're very happy you ended up in Jacksonville as your final stop. All right. So, Brandy, today we're talking about self-care and how, honestly, right before you joined us, I said self-care isn't selfish. And I just would love to help explain that, because it's a never-ending topic. It's really a buzzword right now. It's top of mind. It really mixes in with our mental health. But what is your definition of self-care as a nurse practitioner? How do you help your patients?
Gosh, I hope you have a few hours to talk about this, because it's my favorite topic. So self-care is basically taking care of all of the aspects of our emotional and physical and outward self. And so the parts that other people see, and then the parts that they can't see, in order to live our best life. And a lot of those things we can't see, and we neglect, or we're so busy taking care of other people. So there's a lot of different components to it, and we'll chat about those. I always think, just my mantra for everything is, you can't pour from an empty cup. And people forget that if they don't practice any type of self-care, then their cup is empty, and they have nothing to give. They really don't feel good. And sometimes it manifests itself in physical symptoms or emotional symptoms, and really causes a lot of unhappiness or dissatisfaction with their life. So self-care helps prevent that and treat it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's so important. Why do you think, though, we feel such guilt when we're taking care of ourselves?
Oh gosh, well, you hit the nail on the head. It does feel selfish, and we are very much trained, I think, from our upbringings, just to do for others and to give. And people forget that, in order to be healthy yourself, you have to be your own advocate. You have to take care of yourself. So I think we just, it's just so, people feel justified in spending $10 for a friend or a stranger, but to do something nice for themselves that would cost the same amount of money, they feel not worthy or, guilty about it. So really, and we're going to talk about things that don't include money, but it's just, yeah, it is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think people sometimes have the wrong misconception of self-care. It's not going to the spa, or it's not, it's not sitting on the beach. Sometimes it is, but it's more than that. It's, maybe it's walking around the corner, or walking around the block. Maybe it's doing a good deed. How do you, as a nurse practitioner, you see many patients, you see caregivers of lots of patients, and we've talked a lot before about how the caregiver caregiver it rarely takes care of themselves because they're so busy taking care of their loved one or who they're taking care of. How do you get a patient to take better care of themselves?
Mostly we talk. We just talk a lot, and we identify how they're caring for themselves now. So we talk about the different things like their diet. Is their diet healthy, or is a lot of it pre-processed, prepackaged type of food? How is their sleep? Do they get any type of exercise? Are they compensating for stress or pain with drugs or alcohol or even prescription drugs, and sometimes be problematic? Are they managing their stress? Are they getting regular checkups? And we also talk about their social connections. Like, what is your support? Who do you lean on when something goes wrong? And who do you talk to about your stress? Like, where's your relief valve? And then, what do they do for themselves? Like, what are the things that they enjoy doing? And you'd be surprised at how much of this we can fit into a conversation or a visit that has absolutely nothing to do with it. So, if you're coming to see me about back pain, we may end up talking about relaxation and, how well you're taking care of yourself and what are you doing for yourself that is rejuvenating yourself.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah, there's room for every visit for a little bit of talk about self-care.
Yeah, I could not agree more. As far as, the self-care and not being selfish, is it important that even a caregiver or someone who is caring for young children even take time for themselves?
Oh my gosh, even more so. So if you have these little tiny humans or these grown humans depending on you and you're burning the candle at both ends, then your health is going to suffer. Your emotional connectivity to that person is going to suffer. And so, yeah, absolutely. If you want to be able to be your best self and put that person forward to the people that you love, then you have to love yourself as much as you're giving to them. So yes, absolutely. It's vital.
Yeah, and easier said than done in a lot of cases too. It's not something that you just wake up one day and say, okay, I'm going to, maybe you do wake up one day and you say, I'm going to take care of myself today. And maybe it's just acknowledging that very first thing in the morning that today is my day.
Right. And I would say even break it down into bite-sized pieces. I think, if I were to try to plan something with someone and give them some words of wisdom, it would be make little tiny changes in your life in many different ways so that you're not just, like you said, it's not a spa day. You're not going for 12 hours of relaxation and that fixes everything. It is making a list of, what are the things that you're doing that are taking away from the battery that you have, and what are the things that you're currently doing that rejuvenate your battery and fill it back up. And so you really have to try to make a nice balance between those two. And so maybe it's you're not eating healthy. And so, little changes that can improve that one thing over time. Or maybe you're not getting enough sleep. And so little changes that can improve that one thing over time. So it doesn't have to be, just like you said, a relaxation exercise. It can be all of the different things in your life.
Yeah. And you mentioned, go ahead.
I'll go into as much detail as you can tolerate with that, but go ahead. What was your question?
Well, I was going to kind of bounce off the emotional part that you just mentioned, that emotional connectivity, how can we emotionally make ourselves more loving of ourselves and that therefore then projecting it onto the people that we're caring for?
I would say the first thing is, strengthening your connections. So, and what I mean by that is that people are connected to themselves, they're connected to others, they're connected to their community. And all three of those are very, very important. And the connections, are you connected to things that incorporate joy into your life? Maybe it's a spiritual connection. Maybe it's something that you do like journaling or telling stories or talking, to a loved one or reaching out to other people. So making those connections, but checking in with yourself and doing a good self-inventory, like how do I feel about these things? What is my mood? Maybe a mood calendar would benefit you to see, are you, pretty happy and resilient most days, or are you somewhere in the sad and kind of blue most days? Kind of recognizing that and checking in and actually keeping track of it. That's something that we can wrap our mind around. We can measure it and see how we're trending. And then that's something that you could bring up. Maybe you need to, make an appointment just to talk about your emotional health. Maybe something would be, some sport that is outside of the friends and family realm would be appropriate.
Yeah. Like someone objective. It always makes me feel a little bit better when they're not tied to my friends and family circle. We are talking with Brandy Epperson. She's a Millennium Physician Group nurse practitioner from our Orange Park office on Kingsley Avenue. And after the quick break, we're going to talk more about self-care and how it relates to our mental health. We talked a little bit about our emotional health. How about our mental health? Inspiration Health Radio, sponsored by Millennium Physician Group. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Inspiration Health Radio, sponsored by Millennium Physician Group. I'm Michelle McCormick. Every week, we talk about the healthcare issues that are important to you by inviting providers and experts to inspire you to take control of your healthcare decisions. Perhaps you've heard the term self-care isn't selfish. When searching the saying, I found many different entities using it to describe basically not feeling bad about taking care of yourself, helping you to recharge, which is vital to your well-being and for those around you. We touched on that in the first segment. Joining us now, Brandy Epperson, a Millennium Physician Group nurse practitioner from our Orange Park office on Kingsley Avenue. And Brandy, you hit on a lot of very, very important things: nutrition, sleep, taking time for yourself, emotional connections, all super important. But I like the one about nutrition because, there's a lot of talk about processed foods, sugars, salt, all of that. And in your practice, how do you focus on changing someone's eating habits to make them healthier and take better care of themselves?
Baby steps.
Literally.
On baby steps. Yeah, we have such a complex relationship with food in our culture, and in many cultures it's integral to the way we socialize with other people, the way we feel about things, and it can be synonymous with love and safety and good memories. And so when I'm talking to people about food, it's really trying to understand the role that it plays in their life. It can be a healthy thing and really a good part of their community interaction with their family and friends, but it can also be used as a coping mechanism, and we can really overdo the parts of it that can negatively impact our physical and our emotional health. During COVID, I can't tell you how many people who, have come and said, I've got this COVID-15, I can't get rid of it, they've been depending more on delivered food and fast food and not cooking as much, and they don't want to go to the stores. And so just recognizing, one, that yes, that happened and it doesn't make you a bad person, and let's set some goals and start baby stepping our way back out of that. And that is, that's okay. We don't have to change we don't have to change this overnight. That's not very plausible or practical either. Mm-hmm. So really just looking at what we're doing now, what is our relationship to food, and then finding the areas that are taking away from us versus adding to our health, and making little changes toward those as we can. That's really, you don't have to follow a specific, unless you have a specific diet, like for your heart or your cholesterol or your diabetes or something. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to take away every good thing that you have ever done with your food. You
Right.
just have to have a more healthy relationship with it.
Yeah, I've always thought of the moderation thing, in moderation. And I know
Sure.
as I age and move into, the second half of my life, it becomes so hard. You want to believe that hamburger is just not going to hurt you that day. But, if you have a hamburger every day, you're probably
Right.
not going down the right path.
Right. Oh, that's true. And, moderation, when you say that automatically makes me think of alcohol intake. And this is probably one of the easiest and yet hardest things for people to change in their life. So we can very easily form an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. One, it's a lot of times very high in calories. And so we're getting too many calories. We don't need that. And we're retaining them. It can have a lot of negative impacts on your other organs, like your liver, it can increase weight gain, particularly around the abdomen, which is, unhealthy for your heart, and it interrupts your sleep. So when we're talking about moderation, in specifically with alcohol, there are some really good guidelines for a normal, healthy person in good physical health. They may not realize that a woman should only drink one alcohol beverage a night, and that's one glass of wine or, one light beer, and a man can have only two. Mm-hmm. So when we're drinking to excess of these limits, or we're kind of like saving them all up and binging on the weekend and having more than 2 or 4, depending on if you're a man or a woman, we can do a lot of damage in a way that we may not realize we're doing. And when it comes back to emotional health, alcohol and your emotional health are very interconnected. People with anxiety or depression symptoms have a lot of rebound symptoms the day after drinking alcohol, and they may feel like they're sleeping really well, but it interferes with that restorative sleep, that deeper sleep where our body rejuvenates itself and our brain shuts down and repairs and fixes and gets regenerated and refreshed and then wakes up the next day. So, we feel like we got better sleep, or maybe we fell asleep easier, but in truth, it's an inadequate sleep. Mm-hmm. And so when we're making this our coping mechanism, or this is our daily ritual, we may not even realize that some of the fatigue and emotional draining is due to that habit that we have in the evening. Or throughout the day. So that's an area that we often talk about, and it's a small change. Sometimes it's a difficult change depending on your relationship with it, but we can support you through that, and we can help you, with that.
Well, Brandy,
so, I think we talk about that a lot.
Yeah, I think you touched on something really important here too, Brandy. It's the word habit, and I think some people are very much like, it's like brushing your teeth, or you get up every day and you brush your teeth. It's really making new habits to take care of yourself. And if it's just taking maybe your 2 glasses a night down to 1, that's changing a habit, and then maybe that 1 glass becomes once a week. So I think you have a really, really good point there.
It is a complex relationship, particularly if you have some emotional issues that you're dealing with. I usually try to encourage people to, if you're going to take away a habit or decrease a habit that is unhealthy, then you need to implement something that is healthier in its place, because it's very hard to take away our coping mechanisms when we don't have a new one in place. So for instance, a nightly walk, a nightly phone call, watching something that you really enjoy, looking at comedy and laughing, or, taking a class or doing something in your community, like an activity that you enjoy. Meditation, yoga, massage, taking a bath, sitting on a park bench. I mean, these are all small things that you can implement into your life on a daily basis.
So why do you think then, Brandy, why is mental health being talked more now than ever before? Mental health has definitely been something in our society for a very, very long time. Why now is it really being brought to the forefront?
I think, I'm not quite sure. I mean, I think the obvious is that COVID has really highlighted how people are struggling with their emotional health. But also, we've had some very famous people in the media and in our society, in our entertainment business, that have talked about it openly, and that's helped decrease the stigma about it. And now, hopefully everyone will think that, this is no different than if I have high blood pressure. Why shouldn't I talk about it? Why shouldn't I get the help I need? Sometimes it really takes that outside impartial observer to listen and give feedback and encouragement, or, whatever support that they can provide to really make a good change in your life. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think it's so important that it's become more of a daily topic, and people, it's not a stigma anymore to be talking about it. What do you think about our social connections, Brandy? Sometimes, are we spending too much time on our phones and not enough time with people? I think COVID also, put us in a place where we couldn't see people for the longest time, and our loved ones in assisted living and so on and so forth. But social connections must be extremely important for our mental health as well.
It really is. I think a lot of us feel some anonymity when we're on our social media platforms, so where we can look at what other people are doing, we can make comments, on a stranger's platform. But the data is coming back to show that that is actually separating us more from the things that we love and connect with on a personal level, decreasing our ability to communicate effectively, to problem solve, and to solve our what's the word I'm thinking of, Michelle? When you have a disagreement and you
right.
cannot.
Well, you need that social interaction to, duke it out, right?
Sure. And we see it a lot more in our younger population, our children who are growing up with a social media presence that we didn't have. And, the young children who are being bullied online and, the cyber violence really that's aimed at people, and also that they're getting their sense of fulfillment and feedback from how many clicks or likes a post gets, or a picture gets. And so I think it is very, very easy to get caught up in that vortex of disconnected from your daily life and from the people that are surrounding you. So putting down a social media platform, putting down a phone, and actually making a conversation with another human can be so invigorating. And I think we've forgotten that and we've moved away from it. So I would say connect with others, not on a social media platform. Actually, maybe it can be close friends or a support group, or, people in communities need a lot of help and assistance. So sometimes getting out of your shell and meeting other people that could benefit from your presence, your expertise, whatever it is that you do that you're good at, that is so fulfilling.
I could not agree with you more. Brandy Epperson, a Millennium Physician Group and nurse practitioner from our Orange Park office on Kingsley Avenue with Dr. Yosei. Brandy, thank you so much for joining us and your expertise in self-care and really helping us with our mental health. You can contact Brandy at 904-541-0670. And you can find more about Brandy on millenniumphysician.com. Brandy, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Up next, we're going to talk to an expert about the benefits of gardening for both physical and mental health. The conversation will continue. Inspiration Health Radio, sponsored by Millennium Physician Group, will be right back. Welcome back to Inspiration Health Radio, sponsored by Millennium Physician Group. I'm Michelle McCormick. Every week, we talk about the healthcare issues that are important to you by inviting providers and experts to inspire you to take control of your healthcare decisions. Well, according to a Good Housekeeping article from April 2019, and I dug deep for this one, gardening can help both your body and your mind. I'm not the best person to talk to about gardening. I believe weeds multiply when you go to pull them, but I also know that I love my spring flowers if I plant them right, and there's a sense of accomplishment at how great my yard looks. And for those who didn't know, April is National Gardening Month, so get out there and plant. But joining us right now is Patrick McCrae. He's the Doolittle Family Director of Gardens and Horticulture at the Cummer Museum of Art and Gardens in Jacksonville, and he is now here with us. So, Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. Did I say
Michelle.
Horticulture right?
You said, yeah. Horticulture.
Okay.
You got it. Thanks for having me, Michelle.
Yeah, so give us a little bit about you. Tell us about your background and how you ended up in Jacksonville.
Sure. I've been in Jacksonville for about 4 weeks now, I think.
4 weeks.
Yeah, I'm a brand new Jacksonville, Jackson, is that what it's called?
Jacksonvillian.
Jacksonvillian.
There you go.
I got to learn that. I'm a brand new Jacksonvillian. I just moved here from upstate New York. I live in the Finger Lakes, sort of central part of New York State. Most recently, before coming to the Cummer Museum, I was the Director of Public Programs and Education at the Garden Conservancy, which is a national garden preservation organization. So we work all across the country to preserve gardens, to celebrate gardens as part of America's culture, and to do work to make sure that gardens are as accessible to the public as possible. So that was my most recent position for the past 4 years or so. Mm-hmm. And then before that, I was a Longwood Gardens Fellow. Longwood Gardens is one of the great gardens of the world in Philadelphia. And the Fellows program is a leadership development program. So I was there for about a year. And then before that, I was at Cornell University for 12 years. I have a master's in horticulture. I was a research manager for a group called the Urban Horticulture Institute, which is a research group that works to basically improve the quality of life in urban landscapes using trees. So we look at ecosystem services. We look at trying to make sure that trees are performing really well so that they benefit both the environmental health but also the human health in cities. As part of that job, I also managed probably 12 or 15 different landscapes on the Cornell campus,
wow.
Covering 30 different acres. So it was a really kind of big undertaking. And so my background is broad. It covers horticultural research, it covers design, it covers history and culture, and I'm just a very passionate gardener myself. You can get me talking about gardens and I'll just go on and on about how great they are and how exciting they are.
Well, I look forward to that conversation, actually. So, it's interesting that you came from, upstate New York, where you wouldn't really think of it as being a sunny, gardening kind of environment with
right.
a lot of snow and cold. So
right.
What kind of culture shock have you received in the past 4 weeks here in the Jacksonville area?
It's really interesting you say that, because where I come from, I was born in Syracuse, and Syracuse is the snowiest major city in the U.S. We get 14 feet of snow every single year. So it's a little different here. We have sun, which actually when I moved to Florida for the first 2 days, it rained.
Oh, right.
I was really confused because I thought it was the Sunshine State, and I wasn't sure
if you were in the right place.
Yeah, did I take a wrong turn somewhere? But no, it's been really interesting. I think for me, as a plants person, learning a new climate is incredibly exciting. Learning the new plant palette is really what makes me tick. So certainly it'll be a challenge to figure out the growing cycles and things like that. But I think I'm up for the challenge. The big thing at where I work at the Cummer Museum is not only is it Florida Horticulture Zone 9, but it's also right along the St. Johns River, which is fluctuates in terms of the tide, mm-hmm. Saltwater inundation into the gardens. So there's a whole sort of slew of new challenges to work around, but that's part of what I like to do. That's what made me excited to come here, really.
Well, that's exciting. We're going to talk a lot more about the Cummer Museum of Art and Gardens, but first of all, it's National Gardening Month, or National Garden Month. How exciting for you. And, what we're talking about today is some of the benefits of self-care. How do we use nature, if you will, to help us balance a little bit. So let's talk about the health benefits of gardening for physical health.
Yeah, I think it's really an important topic. And when we think of gardens, we think of beautiful spaces, right? We think of the mental stimulation that we get from gardens as kind of the first thing that comes to mind. But what we need to remember as well is that gardening as a physical activity is incredibly valuable for our healths. So for example, if you spend 1 hour in your garden sort of lightly weeding or mulching or planting things, you might burn 330 calories. So you're getting a sort of low-key, low-intensity workout just from the fact that you're outside getting the physical activity. For folks who have any sort of motor skills development issue, gardening can really help with those fine motor skills. Being out in the sunshine, having the vitamin D. Of course, we should be wearing sunblock and all those sorts of things, which also I'm learning being new here to Florida.
Welcome to our UV. Yeah,
exactly. But having that vitamin D from the sun is important for calcium absorption and bone development. So there's really multitude of physical benefits to gardening, and it's not just adults who benefit from it as well. Children should be out in the gardens, sort of playing and learning and experimenting and exploring around the gardens, and that's a physical activity that they don't necessarily have to get just from going to the playground or being out, running around with their friends. They can do it right in the garden.
Yeah, I know my husband likes to go outside and do his yard work, just I think to get out of the house, for one thing. But second of all, I think, he feels good when he's doing it, even though the next day he's sore from lifting bags of mulch and cutting down tree limbs that need to come down. So, do you think gardening and yard work as a whole reduces stress as well?
I definitely think so. I think I have a perfect job where I can be stressed one moment and then I go out and work in the garden and explore and be around beautiful things.
What do you think it is? Yeah. What do you think it is about being in the garden?
The interesting thing is that, one, it's just like when you look at a work of art, just the act of looking and being absorbed by something that's beautiful, that's part of nature. It lowers our cortisol levels, it lowers our heart rate, and these are like quantifiable physical impacts that we can measure.
Definitely something that makes us calmer.
Yeah.
The beauty of it settles. This is how I respond to it. So I'm going to say it for everybody.
Sure.
And looking at something beautiful like artwork, and that's why I love that the gardens are attached to the museum here in Jacksonville. But I also just think that it's so calming and it's quiet. Sometimes it can be so quiet,
yes.
And you hear the birds chirp and you hear the bees buzzing. And that to me is what I think of as when I go to the gardens.
I think you're right. I mean, it's really easy in our daily lives to be completely consumed by all of the chaos and all of the deadlines and all of the business. And when you just take that moment to pause and to go out and to breathe the fresh air and to be around that something that is beautiful. It's one of the reasons I got into this field in the first place. I love being around beautiful things, and gardens are my favorite of beautiful things, and they're always changing, and there's always something new to look at. And I think it kind of helps you to focus yourself, because when your mind is going in a million different directions and you go out into a garden, every single day you can find something that is new and different, and you might learn something. You might find a plant that you've never seen before. You might see a plant that is coming into bloom, and it might take 2 weeks. I've got a little geranium on my porch that, I'm maybe an extreme example of this, but I've been watching these flower buds start and grow and expand, and now they're in what we call a color bud, where they're just about to open, and it'll probably be 3 or 4 more days before they're open, but I'm like really tuned into that process, and it slows me down every morning, and I get to take care of it, and it gives me this sense of satisfaction and joy just from taking care of something that I am kind of nurturing and paying a lot of deep attention to.
Yeah, and I think you have such a great point there. It's like over the winter, everything's so barren and brown, and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, look, there's a bud on that. Yeah. And then it blooms, and then you have this gorgeous flower, and there is that, there's a sense of belief, of regrowth, of rebirth, if you will. I was just in Northern California, and there was, many fires out there, and we went on a hike, and you could just tell that this whole area had been burned, and then you could just see all the regrowth. Yeah. Over years. So I follow exactly what you're saying. And I think even just talking about it brings like a sense of calm.
I feel like it does. And there's a phrase that we say that to plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow. And I think that is absolutely true. It's a hopeful act to plant a seed, or to, buy a plant from the nursery and put them in your landscape. You know that you're cultivating something that in the days and weeks and months ahead will bring you beauty and joy, or will bring you something fresh to eat, or whatever the case may be. It's something that is just an inherently hopeful thing to do.
Well, we are talking with Patrick McRae. He's the Doolittle Family Director of Gardens and Horticulture at the Cummer Museum of Art and Gardens in Jacksonville. And coming up in the next segment, we're going to continue our conversation about Patrick. We're going to talk about how important these public spaces are for our neighborhoods and our communities. So definitely stick around. Inspiration Health Radio, sponsored by Millennium Physician Group. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Inspiration Health Radio, sponsored by Millennium Physician Group. I'm Michelle McCormick. Every week, we're talking about the healthcare issues that are important to you by inviting providers and experts to inspire you to take control of your healthcare decisions. Today, we've been talking about self-care and some mental health care. And, gardening can really, really help. Some of us dread it, like me. I'm like, oh my God, gardening, I'm going to go pick all the weeds, and then they're going to multiply and be back. But you know what? The spring flowers that are coming our way are well worth the effort. And also, April is actually National Gardening Month. So let's get out there and let's plant our gardens. But if you don't want to get out there and plant, you can go visit the Cummer Museum of Art and Gardens in Jacksonville. And joining us is Patrick McRae. He's the Doolittle Family Director of Gardens and Horticulture at this amazing resource that we have right here in Jacksonville. And Patrick, you were telling us in the last segment that you're very freshly new to Florida.
Yes.
And the sunshine.
Yes.
But you know what? You couldn't have picked a more beautiful place to work. The gardens there at the museum are second to none, as far as I'm concerned. Right there on the river, the view is gorgeous. Give us a little bit of history about the Cummer Gardens.
Sure. Well, before I do that, I want to back up just a little bit and reflect on the fact that you just said that you dread going out into your garden.
Oh, I know. I saw your face.
My face was like, oh no. Because here's the thing: is I think, especially with kids, shifting the mindset from gardening as a chore to gardening as a great opportunity and a chance to go out and explore the natural world and do something beautiful. I have to say,
you've changed my mind.
I just had to go back and say, let's just talk about that for 1 second.
No, you're right. You're right.
It is not a chore. It is a wonderful thing to do, and it helps, as we talked about, it helps your body and it helps your mind. So
I do love the fact that it is a mind shift. You are exactly right. And this weekend when I'm home and my husband's out there lugging around the mulch and stuff, I'm be like, I'm here to help.
That's right. You're here to help.
I'm here to help.
And he doesn't have to go to the gym. He can get his workout right there in the garden. And it benefits everybody.
It does. It benefits the brain.
That's right. So back to what you actually are asking
That's
about,
all right.
which is the Cummer Museum. I feel like I found a really fantastic place to work because the Cummer Museum is probably the most activated public green space, certainly on the river, anywhere in Jacksonville. It is horticulturally rich. It is really incredibly beautiful, and it's accessible to the public. And so I feel like it's really a gift to the city of Jacksonville, and it belongs there for everybody. And we really love to welcome our visitors to the museum and hope that they have time to go out and explore the gardens and to find some inspiration that they might take back to their own gardens at home, and then go back and think very positively about wanting to get out there and make their gardens as beautiful as they possibly can. But the Cummer Museum, the Cummer Gardens, I should say, are really interesting. They're over 100 years old. They bear the imprint of some of the most substantial, important garden designers in American history, including the Olmsted Brothers firm. Frederick Law Olmsted Sr. was the famous Olmsted who designed Central Park in New York City. His sons owned the Olmsted Brothers firm, and they were one of the firms that worked on Nina Cummer's property. It has the imprint of Ossian Cole Simmons, who was an important sort of prairie central United States landscape designer who was one of the very early proponents of native plants in our landscapes. And so he was one of the people that Mrs. Cummer brought in to advise on the gardens. And most importantly, Ellen Biddle Shipman worked on our Italian garden. And Ellen Biddle Shipman is one of the most significant 20th century female landscape architects. There was I think it was a 1931 article in, I want to say, well, it was a gardening publication. I don't want to say the wrong one, where she was called the Dean of Female Landscape Architecture, which I think is sort of a funny title. Now we just think of her as being an incredibly significant landscape architect. And much of her record had been sort of lost to history until actually several years back at Cornell University, her archives were discovered. And so her name has sort of come back into prominence, and there are very few gardens of hers that actually still exist.
Wow.
So the Cummer has one of them, and it's a really fantastic and beautiful space. And you can really, when you come to the gardens, you can feel the difference between our spaces. We have an English garden, we have the Italian garden, and we have what we call the Olmsted Garden. And each of them has a unique character and sort of different horticultural focus. And I anticipate that over the course of time, that will become more pronounced and more obvious to the visitors. And we'll do a lot of education around what those different things mean. What does it mean to be an English garden? What does it mean to be an Italian garden? So I think that there's just this great opportunity to leverage the gardens as an asset for the museum and an asset for the community, because there's not really a major botanical garden culture here in Jacksonville. And that's something that I'm really excited to bring to the conversation.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's awesome. And, the public space, right? It's how important is that to well-being and self-care?
It's incredibly important. I mean, let's think about it. Not everybody has a large backyard in which they can garden. I do think that everybody can grow something, even if it's growing, a basil in your windowsill. I think everybody has the capacity to grow plants, and I think that's great for everybody. But if you can't have a big garden of your own, that's the importance of public green space, to get out and to have passive recreation, to walk around, to see things that are beautiful and get all those mental and physical health benefits that we talked about earlier. And the Cummer Museum, and then right down the street from us, we've got Memorial Park, which is also designed by the Olmsted firm. We have these really interesting green spaces right here in the city that when they're made accessible to people, it's just a tremendous benefit for the entire community.
Yeah. And I mean, do you consider a playground public space, or, just even a corner that you can go walk around outside? Yeah, beach? We have the beach.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, Jacksonville boasts the I think it's the largest parks system in the country. Part of that is the fact that the city and the county are one entity, and so there's all of this space, which is technically park space. But I think when you're thinking about activated public spaces, a playground is an incredibly important thing, and we need to have lots of really great playgrounds. I'm sure there are great playgrounds all across Jacksonville, but a garden is a little bit different, because we talked about that serenity and that calm that you get from being in a garden. And so it's not the same as a patch of land that is clean mown and grows grass and you can play soccer, whatever. A garden is different, and a public garden in particular has that educational component that I mentioned, where we get to actually talk about horticulture and talk about the history and use it as a different kind of activated public resource.
Yeah, and I agree. I think playgrounds are loud and noisy and active, like
Yes.
lots happening, while a garden, especially the garden space or the arboretum even, is a place for just quiet. Like I was talking earlier, you can hear the birds chirp, you can hear the bees buzz, and it makes a difference in my mental space. And so the importance of having that public space, I think, is underrated.
Absolutely.
Honestly.
But at the same time, it doesn't have to be too precious. Like, you don't have to feel like you come to the Cummer Gardens and you have to whisper and talk really quietly and softly. You can be yourself. You can bring your whole personality to the garden and find yourself there. And that's what's so beautiful about it, is because it's a public resource that's available for everybody. You can kind of come and learn how to enjoy it and learn how to learn about it, learn how to think about it in a way that works for you.
Yeah. Do you offer gardening tours, classes? What types of things can we do in the gardens?
We sure do. We have all of the information is on our website, but we have lots of docent-led tours of both the art collections and the gardens. We occasionally do yoga in the gardens, which is, as going back to wellness in gardens, it's a really perfect tie-in.
Sign me up for that.
That's right. I haven't gone into that yet.
Wait till you start doing outdoor yoga. You're going to be doing it in October when you usually are shoveling snow.
Yeah, that's true. Outdoor yoga with a sunburn. I do need to work on my hip flexibility.
Yeah, yoga's great for that. Good for self-care.
That's right.
And the breathing techniques are unbeaten.
That's right.
But so you guys are doing those type of things in the gardens?
That's right, yeah. But it's important that we think of the gardens for all of the different functions that they have for the Cummer. So one of them is as this great location for things like yoga, things like our evening events. We have free Fridays and free Tuesdays, and these are really wonderful opportunities for people to come out and be in the Cummer Gardens and just using them how they want to use them. We have picnics in the garden, which is really fantastic. And so we not only have that sort of programmed opportunity to enjoy the gardens, we also think that they're just a wonderful time for people to come and have that moment. Come take a moment, and that's what the gardens are there for.
I love that. Well, cummermuseum.org. Cummer, C-U-M-M-E-R, museum, M-U-S-E-U-M.org, to learn more about the garden events and free admission days, which you touched on a little bit too. Their address is 8229 Riverside Avenue, and you can always call the Cummer Museum Art and Gardens in Jacksonville at 904-356-6857. Patrick McCrae, the Doolittle Family Director of Gardens and Horticulture at the Cummer Museum of Art and Gardens in Jacksonville. Thank you. Welcome to town.
Thank you so much.
I think you're going to love living here. Keep your water handy.
That's right.
Humid days ahead.
That's what they tell me.
As you learn about, the garden culture here in Northeast Florida.
Yes, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
The conversation will continue next time on Inspiration Health Radio. Your healthcare journey, very important to us, and our goal at Millennium Physician Group is to work together to achieve the best health outcome for you. That starts with seeing your primary care provider. See our website for a full list of offices and providers at millenniumphysician.com. In good health, I'm Michelle McCormick. Have a great day.